Good morning. Usually I do not come on the internet this ugly, but one shoulder up, two shoulder up. I don't care. I'm getting on here today because I was going to practice my veneration since it is harvest time. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, last year I did a whole podcast on Ancestor veneration. You can check that out at Love Spell, a Queen with a Pen, on Spotify or any other streaming app. But I realized that I am going to be practicing veneration, but I'm also going to be practicing cemetery etiquette. And it has not been one of the things that I've talked about. So I'm going to take you guys through the steps of my etiquette today. I'm going to show you guys what I do when I go venerate my ancestors. This is November 2nd, so it usually happens after the harvest moon between November 1st and I think the 30th to November 2nd. And so today's the last day, but we about to get into it. Okay, so first things first, it is 8 a.m. You hear my pot going. That's my coffee. I am hungry, so I'm going to eat first. Also, I take this time to put aside a little bit, so I'll cook breakfast for myself and my ancestors that are not at the cemetery. This will be able to give me my ability to give an offering for the ancestors that are not direct descendants or ancestors that I don't fairly know exist. I do not show my altar, so when I give this offering, I won't be able to show you guys that because that's just my thing. Some people are okay with showing their altar, some people are not. I have multiple altars in my house, but particularly this altar is my ancestor altar, and it's something that I keep private. The only way you would know is if you've been in my home. So what's up, everybody? So it's ancestor veneration time, and before we even get started, the first thing I do is make myself coffee and make my ancestors coffee. We're both fans. Caffeine and nicotine is one of the things that ancestors love the most, so they will always ask for it, and we give them what they want. Yeah. Before I go out to the cemetery, I wanted to lay out a few things that I'm going to bring with me and to venerate, and I'm not going to do any real spell work there, but I am going to, manifest a little bit, like just let my ancestors know what I'm trying to do so they can help me in any way they can. So first things first, water. You always want to bring libations. I think I talked about this in my podcast, but water is a conduit between you and the spiritual world. So water is always granted. Also, your ancestors love libation. So not only will I be including water, but I'll be stopping at the store to get Jack Daniels, because liquor is always a favorite of the ancestors, especially mine. And I know for some like Caribbean people, it's usually rum, but mine like Jack Daniels, so I'll be stopping to get that. Also, what I also don't have here is nicotine, which I'll be stopping at the store and picking a little bit of that up too in order to venerate. My grandma likes scratchers, and she just said in my head, give me a scratcher. So I'm gonna get her a scratcher that I'll leave there for her. You got to get matches because you want to, light up. Plus I'm doing a little manifestation, so I'm bringing my burning bowl and also parchment paper with a marker so I can write down my intentions for moving forward. I'm manifesting some things, so it's very important to me. Also, I'm bringing my own protections, so I have my stones here and some other protections in here covered with oils, and I'm also covered in certain protection oils. If you want to know more about that, you would have to comment or ask me directly. Of course, I'll link down below all the ways you can get in contact with me. But this is selenite. It's a selenite stick, and I like it a lot. It's like a wand to me, magic wand. So I take it anywhere that I feel is important for protection. So I'll be doing that. I also have Florida water, which everybody knows what this is. If you're in the spiritual world, Florida water is important. So I'll be taking that with me. A little bit of dragon's blood oil is one of the things I'm covered in, but it's, kind of like an anointment oil of safety. I will show you these, but I'll explain better to you what they are moving forward. Somebody's passing by. But candy and pennies. You want to get the copper ones if you can, because they're more important than the regular ones. But the other ones, you know, you just put out your intentions that, you know, intent is everything. So if the intent is there, then it will still work. But try to find the older pennies. I think the ones that are like 1980s or so. I think it's like 85 is when they changed over the pennies from copper to something else. Also, I brought an incense, just one, a frankincense and myrrh, because you know that stands for protection, and you always want to have protection. Palo Santos. It's also for burning for protection. You want to have protection while stepping into the spirit realm, because your ancestors are one thing, but you are not on your own. You're stepping into somebody else's playground, so just be conscious of that and respectful. Also, this is called cascarilla in Spanish. And what it is eggshells. So you can buy it already made, but it looks like chalk when you buy it. But for me, I don't really buy stuff because I do it myself. So this is when I cook, I keep the eggshells, I blend them up, and I mix a little bit of what do you call it, the Florida water. And of course I set my intentions and I take it with me as for protection as well. Now I'm offering one of the things I talked about with the podcast last year is marigold flowers. Now these are often used in Spanish culture during Dias de los Muertos. It does signify veneration to me. The colors of autumn is also a really good thing, but I am laying these out on my ancestors' graves just to give them a little beauty, a little life, you know what I mean? Something living. I'll be stopping to get a few things that I'll show you later on, but yeah, let's go venerate, you guys. Okay, so before we get to the actual cemetery, I wanted to give you guys a couple of pointers on what you should do before you ever even enter a cemetery. I learned this the hard way, but not really. So I learned that I was doing things wrong when I first stepped into the spiritual world, because I was very ornery and I wanted to do things my way. I wanted to go by my own beat of my drum, which is something I often do. But so I didn't receive large backlash, like negative things did not come to me, only because I think I had already put out protections in place. I was already doing a lot of spell work that had to do with like unhexing, uncrossing, you know, protecting, you know, keeping negative energies away. So I was already in that mode already. And then I also believe that my ancestors knew that I was a baby. They know how you are. Spirit knows. And of course, the Most High knows you more than anything. So they were pushing me in the direction of spirituality, but protecting me while I made my mistakes. And so when people will tell you, I'm rambling for a second, but when people tell you, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, because you're gonna get you're gonna get this is gonna happen or whatever, this is true, but it's just the equivalent of you making a mistake while, you know, doing something new in life, period. The only times that you will face grave mistakes is when you start conjuring things. But when you're dealing with your ancestors, your guides, the Most High, when you're, you know, contacting spirit in order to manifest a better life for yourself, the backlash that you will get, or the mistakes that you are, just life lessons, thumps on the hands, don't touch that kind of situation, you know, the things that a parent would do to their toddler child or whatever, just, you know, in a spiritual way. So I, you know, made a few mistakes. I walked into a gravesite with, for example, nothing covering my head. Hence the reason why I'm wearing a hat today, which you will not see me often wear. Although I have a weave in my head, so technically my head is covered. So if you walked into a cemetery and you were wearing a weave, that's not your head. Your head was covered. It's okay. But I wore this for one, it's cute. And I also wore this for the purposes of explaining why a hat is needed for you to, you know, keep your head covered. And it's because spirits, or your crown chakra, your crown, your head is, when you're dealing in spirituality, is important. It is how you can be possessed. It is how a spirit can attach to you and mess up your mind. So it is the first thing to go. It is the first thing to be up under attack, and therefore you must protect it. Also, before you enter into a cemetery, you should have good intent. And you should make sure that you're not in a low vibrational energy. For example, sadness is a very low energy. So in the event that you go to your ancestor or family member's gravesite and you're under deep sorrow, ask your ancestor to protect you. Ask your family member to protect you on your walk through that cemetery to them, because guess who else sees your deep sorrow and will attach themselves to you? Lower level spirits. Lower level spirits sense anger. Lower level spirits sense hostility. Any ability to break through and to leech onto you, they so will, even if it's under the, you know, heartbreak of a lost loved one, which is really sad. But I mean, honestly, anybody who was was really vulnerable at the time is always taken advantage of during a vulnerable state. People are usually not taken advantage of when they're not in a vulnerable state. Spirits utilize the same energy in order to take advantage of you and leech onto your energy as well. So, first two things, check your spirit. If you are in high spirits, you will be less likely to be attacked or to be followed home. If you are in low spirits, make sure that you bring all the protection that you possibly can, and you call out to your family member that I'm coming to see you under duress. I need your protection and guidance when I come through. Please make sure that I am not under attack. Please make sure that I am taken care of, you know, in all love. And I ask for the Most High to give you direction and guide you to guide me. Right? So those are the couple of things. But once we get to the cemetery, I'll show you the steps in which I take in order to start off my entrance on a good note. Okay, so here's the hard part. Before I can even get inside, like everyone else, they just fly through here, and that's nice, gravy, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? But for me, I have to give an offering because there's something called a gatekeeper. There is an entity that lives at the gate. And so remember when I told you the 3 pennies or the pennies that are made of copper? These, as well as candy, is accepted by the gatekeeper. So I'm going to take the time and go make that offering. Usually you put it at the gate, the entrance. And then you can be able to enter. This way, when I step in, drive in, or whatever I do, that the gatekeeper has already accepted an offering, and that any spirit that tries to cross back out with me will be stopped by the gatekeeper. It's to pay homage, you know? So next we gotta find out where I'm going, because I always get lost in here. Okay. So I'm breathing heavily because first, I know where my father is in this. Well, where is my father in this cemetery? But I also was planning on venerating my uncle, who is also buried at this cemetery, and any other persons that I shall find. And we're passing. And it took me a fucking minute to find my uncle. But I have placeholdered him. Also, there's a couple of, there's a couple of, like a whole family over there that is having basically like a picnic at the park, or at the, you know, cemetery, which is something that they do, the Spanish culture. So, you know, they venerate in a different way than said hoodoo princess like me. So, you know, I'm not bothered by it or anything like that. But yeah, there's just a few things that I do differently. They're kind of like just running around and all that. I was a little bit bothered though, because man, the fact that I had to like walk back and forth and across people's graves, like you don't do that. So I had to apologize and you know, what do you call it, ask for, you know, forgiveness, that I wasn't trying to disrespect other people's graves. I was just, you know, looking for someone, which they actually helped me and led me in the right direction. So that's good. Okay, so First up, we're at the first relative's cemetery or area. He's the one I'm doing first for a couple of reasons. One, I have been to the cemetery multiple times. It's the first time I've sat at his grave. Secondly, it took me work to find it. And secondly, there are people surrounding the grave of my father. And so I'm giving them some time because they're a little bit hype and I can't really record with them right there. They have the dogs running around. They're like enjoying themselves, having a good time. Nothing, no biggie. You know what I'm saying? It's just can't hear me if they're yelling. So now that I'm sitting, first of all, the greenery itself is grounding. So here's the deal. Like the first time that I went into a cemetery or whatever, I had on sandals, which is a big no-no. And I was frolicking around, putting my feet in the earth. I'm laughing at myself now, but it's not funny. I was putting my feet in the earth because I wanted to ground myself. And yeah, don't do that. You do not want to ground yourself in a graveyard. And although this is lush, beautiful greenery, as you can see, and it really does feel beautiful out here, it really does ground you. You do not have to stick your feet in the dirt in order to be grounded here, because the weight of the souls here will ground you on your own. So you can take in the fresh air, you can inhale the scent of the grass, you can have a moment of silence. You know what's really awesome is the fact that while I was there was a family who was having a picnic, as I stated earlier, right across from me, and they were playing mariachi music. They had actually, I don't know if this was their family or they had hired a band. I'm not exactly sure, but the music playing in the background was mariachi music, and it really lit up the energy in that area. I could feel that my ancestors were very happy and was pretty much dancing to the beat. And I know that the family that was sitting next to me was in very good spirits. So I just sat there listening, enjoying, and taking in the vibration from the music and playing, lighting my Palo Santo. Of course, Palo Santo is like the sage that, gets rid of bad spirits, but not all spirits. Because I use Palo Santos instead of actual sage, because sage clears out the energy of all things. And Palo Santo leaves the spirit around there. It just eliminates any negative energy that might be surrounding you. So I was just taking in the musical vibration and enjoying myself. Okay, so I actually had a pretty good time, especially when the Spanish family brought up the whole little mariachi band. Like, they go in for their ancestors. They don't play no games. So, I'm eating. I don't know. I've been tearing up these orange Tic Tacs. This is like candy. But anywho, so my veneration is done for the day. I am going to take a little walk around, the cemetery a little bit after I put my stuff away. And, just show a little bit of it. How it's not that spooky. The sun is about to go down. So, right before, what is this, twilight? It's called twilight. Yeah. Show that it's not as bad as people think. Take a little walk and then we'll get up out of here. So before I left, I wanted to make sure I went over as many of the tips as I could about, cemetery etiquette and what you should or should not be doing. Let's see if we covered all the bases. So when you enter into a cemetery, especially if you're going to take something from the cemetery, which I have not talked about, but even if you're coming to visit, to make sure or ensure that spirits do not follow you home, offering a gift to the gatekeeper is a good way of making sure that the gatekeeper makes sure that spirits don't follow you home. I got a little distracted because there is a spider, a very large spider, creating a web. And especially in the spirit world, spiders most definitely mean abundance and luck. And this one is freaking huge. Hold on. Look at that. And right now, that spider is literally spinning their web. That is huge, you guys. Okay, back to me. So, always back to me. Anyway, so as we take this walk, I just wanted to go through all the things in which you should make sure you do. So first we talked about the gatekeeper at the gate and giving them an offering of pennies or coins, pretty much, but mostly copper coins and candy. And that is like just paying homage and being respectful to the gatekeepers of the other side. When you enter into a cemetery after that, you go to the place that you're going to. And when you're there and you're looking for your ancestors, like for me, I had to go and trek around and look for an uncle that I had never actually visited, but I was aware that my uncle was buried at the cemetery. So I went to go look at that uncle today. Venerate the uncle as well. And I had to cross over many graves in order to find him, because although there's numbers out here, they're kind of like grown over by the grass. So when you're not supposed to cross over graves as much as possible. So I tried to walk in between them as much as possible and not actually cross over them. But the ones that I did or was forced to cross over, whatever, I sent my gracious apologies and asked if they could, help me, lead me in the right direction to find my ancestor, that I was not here being disrespectful, that I was actually trying to visit somebody, and if they could just forgive me for any transgressions, because I don't want to anger a spirit by disturbing them, stomping all over their resting place or whatever. And I know for people who are not spiritual, they'll say like, oh well, that person's not there, blase blase blase. But if you are a spiritualist, a religion person, anything like that, then that anywhere that your heart shall dwell, you shall dwell as well at any point in time. You don't stay there all the time, but yeah. So, do not step over or cross over people's graves. Do not ground yourself or walk around in the grass with your shoes off, because you will track those spirits home with you. Things can attach to you. You do not want, and also, you do not want to bring death into your home. So after you do your practices, rituals, or whatever, you shall praise, venerate, offering, some type of libation, some type of edible food is good, and something living, like flowers, plants, or something like that. Spend time, you can write out what you think. You can do a multitude of things. There's no rules to venerating or paying homage, because the harvesting that we used to do prior to this is not being done anymore. You're not a farmer, so the ways in which you venerate are quite different these days, and that's okay. Your ancestors know this, and they're just happy that you came along to remember them, So after that, you finish, you clean up all of your mess. Please do not leave trash at the cemetery. It's disrespectful and rude. It blows over into other people's, families' cemeteries. So be respectful of that. Do not take things from the cemetery. Now I'm going to reiterate this. If you're a spiritualist and you're going to get grave dirt, if you're going to lay something at the crossroads of a cemetery, which is understood, then there's certain rules that you must apply to doing that as well. You have to ask for permission. You cannot, will not, should not. I have to cross the street, you guys. You cannot, should not, would not take things without permission just because you so want to do so. Stomping all over people's graves, taking from people's graves, without permission it can get you in trouble, pretty much. I can't tell you what exactly will happen. I don't know if your protections in place will stop you from being in too much trouble. I can't tell you that part, but what I do know is you do not want some funky, creepy, crawly creature, or someone who's standing in the corner of your home because you took his grave dirt home with you without permission. You never know what these people did before before they passed on, and you don't want to find out by stealing things from them. Just be aware. So if you do decide to come in and take things, just make sure that you follow the policies of spirituality, the rules, karmic rules about receiving things. Also, make sure it's okay to give. So, for example, I would never give to so now that you've given your offering, you respectfully, did what you were planning on doing without disturbing the peace of other spirits around you. When it's time to leave. Now, for me, I don't ever have this problem because I always get lost for some unknown reason looking for my family spots. But you should never leave the way you came in. So if you take a particular route in, then you go around, make some lefts, some rights, and then get out of there the other way. The reason for that is that you don't want to be followed. So it's just what we consider to be old wives' tale, but in hoodoo, it's like wearing a hat on your head. You just don't come in the same way and leave the same way so that the spirit can follow you. You have successfully venerated your ancestors. And in doing so, I have come to realize that I have gotten a change in my life that is drastic from paying homage to the people in my bloodline who have come before me. The truth about it is that every culture on this planet practices some type of veneration. Some people do it intentfully, and some people do it without intent. But they do it nonetheless. Pouring out liquor for the homies, libations, as we would call it in veneration, breaking from the bread and calling it the body, drinking from the blood and the wine and calling it the blood is also a form of veneration, especially on one day of the month. Every month is a practice, and it is veneration. Calling out to your family members for help and guidance is veneration. You do it, but do you do it intentfully? The cemetery is not a place to fear. The cemetery is the place you come to be fearless. You've been listening to Love Spell, a Queen with a Pen. I'm glad I could talk your ear off today. Bye for now. Okay, so as far as it goes, this is done yearly for me, and I really do appreciate everybody who's tuning in and learning a little bit about ancestor veneration. I know in my cultural community, things like this is shunned upon. It's considered to be demonic. It's considered to be, sacrilegious of some kind. That somehow you'll get negative, flashback from, dealing in your ancestors. But I'm here to tell you that I have gotten nothing but wonderful results from being a part of this spiritual community, and really paying homage to the people who have paved the way in my bloodline, paying homage to the people who have nothing but good intentions for me so far. I really appreciate you tuning in. Bye for now. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm very gracious for your listening ear. If you want to get in contact with me, I'm on Instagram at lovespell_LVS888. I am also on TikTok now at lovespell888. And I have an email address at lovespell.lvs888@gmail.com. I appreciate all of your support. You can also make comments and suggestions in the comment section. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for listening to me. Bye for now.